The first time I saw him, I thought God was laughing at me. The second time, I realized it wasn't God at all, it was him, and he was dangerous. I never believed in angels. Not the ones in holy books, not the ones whispered about in grief, and certainly not the kind that fall from heaven. But that night in Brooklyn, the city stretched beneath the stars like a wound that refused to close, and I signed my name on a contract that should have damned me forever. His name was Adrian, and he wasn't human. He found me in the shadows behind a half-burnt church, cigarette dangling from my lips, anger gnawing at my insides like a starving dog. My father had died, my mother disappeared into her grief, and the people who ruined my life were still smiling under neon lights, as if the world bent to their cruelty. I wanted revenge. I wanted them to hurt the way I did. And Adrian offered it with a smirk that was both sinful and sad. "Sign," he told me, holding out a sheet of paper that smelled faintly of smoke and rain. "And I'll give you the kind of justice this world doesn't believe in." I didn't hesitate, not even for a second. But what the contract didn't mention was how Adrian's eyes would undo me. How every laugh, every careless brush of his hand against mine would begin to carve holes in my armor. How his presence would make me forget why I wanted revenge in the first place. It started with small victories. A corrupt boss who suddenly lost everything. A bully who mysteriously broke his leg the night after mocking me. Each one felt like fuel to the fire burning in my chest, and Adrian was always there, watching me with that maddening calm, as if he already knew how this story would end. But it was in the quiet moments, the subway rides at 2 a.m., the silence of an empty diner with coffee going cold between us, that I began to see him differently. His smile wasn't cruel when no one else was looking. His voice carried the weight of centuries, but his eyes, God, his eyes carried loneliness deeper than any hell. "You think you're using me," he said once, staring at the lights flickering through the window of a cheap apartment we shared. "But what happens when I'm the one using you?" I wanted to laugh it off, tell him I wasn't scared. But the truth was I was already lost. There's a strange intimacy in revenge. It binds you to the one who gives it to you, like blood on your hands that never quite washes off. And the closer I got to destroying those who ruined my life, the closer I got to Adrian. He wasn't just the fallen angel who had crawled into my world, was becoming the gravity that pulled me through each day. The city noticed us. Two men moving through the chaos like shadows, too close for comfort, too obvious in our silence. The whispers started. The stares burned. New York isn't kind to people like us. The streets aren't kind. Families aren't kind. And yet, every time his hand brushed mine in the crowd, every time his shoulder leaned into me when we sat in the dark, I thought, let them all burn. Let the whole world end if it means I get to keep this. But the contract was still there, written in invisible ink, binding us in ways I didn't understand. And love wasn't part of the deal. The night everything cracked open, it was raining. The kind of rain that feels like punishment, hammering down on rooftops and streets, washing the city in silver and ash. I had cornered the last man on my list, the one who had betrayed my father and made my family crumble. My hands were shaking as I raised the gun, my pulse screaming with years of grief. And Adrian stood behind me, his voice like velvet wrapped around barbed wire. "Do it," he said softly. "End this. End him." But when I looked back, the streetlight caught his face in a way that stole the breath from my lungs. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't commanding. He was pleading. And I realized something terrifying. Adrian wanted me to kill, not for revenge, but for him. Because every sin bound me closer to him. Every act of hate fed the chains that tied us together. "Do it," he whispered again. I dropped the gun. The man fled into the rain, swallowed by the city, and I fell to my knees. Adrian didn't move, didn't speak. For a long time, he just stared at me as if he had never seen me before. "You broke the contract," he said finally, his voice trembling. "You were supposed to finish it. You were supposed to be mine." I looked up at him, tears mixing with the rain. "Maybe I don't want to belong to revenge anymore. Maybe I want to belong to you." For the first time, Adrian looked afraid. That night, we didn't speak. We just sat together on the rooftop, the city stretching out below us, broken and beautiful. His shoulder pressed against mine, and I realized something so simple it hurt. Love wasn't in the contract, but it had been written in us from the start. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The silence between us was heavier than any storm. We walked through the streets without speaking, the rain dripping from our clothes, from his blonde hair that gleamed under the neon signs. My hands trembled, not from the cold, but from the weight of what I had just done or hadn't done. Adrian's footsteps echoed like thunder, sharp and certain. Mine stumbled. Every few seconds, I stole glances at him, searching for a crack in his expression, for some proof that he wasn't as angry as I feared. But his face was unreadable, carved from marble and moonlight. "Why didn't you pull the trigger?" His voice finally broke the night, quiet but laced with fire. I swallowed hard. "Because I'm not like you. Because revenge won't bring him back. And because—" I stopped. The words burned my throat. Saying them out loud would be a confession I wasn't sure he wanted. "Because what?" He turned, his eyes catching mine, endless and merciless. "Because I don't want to lose myself. I don't want to lose you." The last part slipped out like a betrayal. I wanted to grab the words back, shove them down into the pit of my stomach where all my secrets lived. But it was too late. They hung in the air between us, more dangerous than any bullet. Adrian flinched. It was slight, almost invisible, but I saw it. His jaw tightened, his hands curled into fists, and his wings, those hidden shadows I sometimes glimpsed when the light bent, strangely shivered with restraint. "You don't understand," he said finally, turning away. "You can't want me. You can't want this." We ended up back at the apartment, that cheap shoebox with peeling paint and a window that overlooked nothing but an alley full of trash. I closed the door behind us, leaning against it like it might protect me from the storm building inside him. He stood in the middle of the room, shoulders tense, eyes cast down at the floor. He looked less like an angel then and more like a man, broken, furious, afraid. "You were mine," he said, almost to himself. "You were supposed to finish the contract. Every name crossed out, every drop of vengeance, you were supposed to belong to me." "I do," I whispered, surprising even myself. "But not the way you mean." His head snapped up. His eyes glowed faintly, not with light but with something deeper, darker. The room seemed smaller, the air charged, like lightning was crawling across the walls. "Love isn't part of the deal," he said, his voice shaking. "Maybe not," I said, stepping toward him. "But it's real." For a moment I thought he would vanish, that he'd spread those wings, tear open the night, and disappear forever. But he didn't. He stood there, breathing raggedly, as if the idea of love was more terrifying than any hell he had ever known. Days passed, but the world didn't slow down. The man I had spared vanished into the city, but his absence left ripples. Whispers spread. People who once sneered at me now looked twice, their eyes cautious, suspicious. Something in me had changed and they could feel it. And Adrian stayed. He didn't leave, though I saw the way he lingered at the window, staring out like a prisoner dreaming of escape. He still watched me with those calculating eyes, still reminded me of the contract like a wound that wouldn't heal. But at night, when sleep claimed me on the couch, I would wake to find a blanket draped over me, the faint scent of rain and smoke clinging to it. He was breaking too. I could feel it. The real trouble started one Friday night. We were at a bar downtown, one of those places where the music is too loud and the air smells of spilled beer and sweat. I was trying to lose myself in the noise, in the illusion of being normal for just one night. But Adrian sat at the corner of the booth, stiff and silent, his blonde hair glowing under the dim lights. He didn't belong there. He didn't belong anywhere. A group of men noticed us. I saw it in their eyes, the recognition, the disgust. One of them leaned over, his breath sour with alcohol. "Pretty little fag," he spat, his words aimed at me, but his eyes lingering on Adrian with something crueler than hate. Before I could react, Adrian was on his feet. His hand shot out, grabbing the man by the collar, lifting him effortlessly despite the man's bulk. The entire bar froze, the music still blaring but suddenly meaningless. Adrian's eyes burned, his voice low and dangerous. "Say it again." The man choked, struggling, his feet dangling inches from the ground. The others backed away, fear etched into their faces. "Adrian, stop!" I shouted, grabbing his arm. "You'll kill him." His gaze flicked to me, wild and desperate, like an animal cornered. For a second, I saw the angel he once was and the monster he had become. "Let him go," I whispered. "Please." For me. Something shifted. His grip loosened, and the man collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. Adrian didn't wait. He stormed out of the bar, the crowd parting like water. I followed, my heart pounding. Outside, the night was alive with sirens and traffic, but all I saw was him, standing under a flickering street lamp, his chest heaving. "Why do you keep stopping me?" he demanded, his voice breaking. "Every time I try to be what I am, you pull me back." "Because you're not what you think you are," I shouted. "You're not just vengeance, Adrian. You're not just darkness. You saved me, didn't you get that?" He shook his head violently, tears mixing with rain. "I didn't save you. I chained you to me, and one day you'll hate me for it." I stepped closer, my hands trembling as I reached for his face. He didn't move. He let me touch him, his skin cold but burning beneath my fingertips. "Then let me decide," I whispered, and for the first time he let me kiss him. It wasn't soft. It wasn't sweet. It was fire and fury and years of pain colliding in one impossible moment. His hands gripped my shoulders, almost bruising, as if he wanted to push me away and pull me closer at the same time. His lips were desperate, unpracticed, tasting of sorrow and smoke. When we finally broke apart, his forehead rested against mine, our breaths mingling in the dark. "This is wrong," he whispered. "Then let's be wrong together." But nothing stays hidden in this city. Not love, not sin, not the contracts we pretend don't exist. The following week, I felt it shift. Ice followed me more than before. Strangers whispered my name in places I had never been. Adrian grew restless, his presence heavier, like shadows clinging to me even in daylight. And then, one night, he told me the truth. "You broke the contract," he said quietly, his eyes hollow. "And now they're coming for you." "Who?" My voice was barely a breath. "The ones who own me. The ones who want you to pay the price." The city outside our window suddenly felt smaller. Every sound, sirens, footsteps, laughter was a warning. And for the first time I understood. Falling in love with a fallen angel wasn't just dangerous. It was fatal. It started with whispers in the dark. First, shadows lengthened where they shouldn't. Then, voices threaded through my sleep, cold and mocking, promising punishment for sins I didn't understand. Adrian never slept, but I caught him staring at the corners of the room at night, as if he saw something I couldn't. His jaw tight, his hands trembling against the cigarette that never seemed to burn out. "They're here," he said one night, his voice so low I almost missed it. "They've been watching, waiting for the right moment." "Who are they?" I whispered, even though I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. "The ones I betrayed when I chose you." His eyes finally met mine, heavy with regret. "The other fallen. They don't forgive. And they don't lose." The first attack came 3 nights later. We were walking home from a diner, the streets slick with rain, when the world seemed to tilt. The air thickened, the lamps flickered, and then they appeared 3 figures, their forms bending the light, faces hidden behind masks of ash. Adrian stepped in front of me instantly. "Stay back," he warned, his voice cutting through the night like steel. One of them laughed, a sound so sharp it made my teeth ache. "So this is the boy? The one you've broken yourself for?" I couldn't move. My body was frozen between fear and disbelief. But Adrian didn't hesitate. Shadows rippled from him, unfurling like wings I couldn't fully see, half real and terrifying. The street cracked beneath his feet, and in a blink, he was on them. The fight was chaos blinding, brutal. The air shook with the clash of something older than the city itself, with light and darkness colliding in ways my eyes couldn't fully comprehend. I saw glimpses. Adrian's hand catching a blade of shadow mid-swing, his body twisting with inhuman grace, the faint golden shimmer of light beneath all that darkness. And through it all, I realized wasn't fighting for himself. He was fighting for me. When it was over, the street was empty again, silent except for my ragged breathing. Adrian was on his knees, blood if you could call it that, dripping black and gold from a wound in his side. I rushed to him, falling to the ground, my hands shaking as I pressed them against his wound. Adrian, stay with me. Please, don't you dare. His eyes fluttered open, a faint smile on his lips. You shouldn't have signed that contract. Stop it, I snapped, tears burning my eyes. I don't care about the contract. I don't care about revenge. I can't lose you. He studied me, his hand lifting weakly to touch my face. His fingers were cold, but the weight of them was steady. You don't know what you're saying. I'm not yours to keep. Yes, you are, I said, fierce, certain. I don't care if heaven or hell wants to tear you apart. You're mine. For a moment his expression cracked, and I saw him the boy he once was, before the fall, before eternity twisted him into something unrecognizable. We hid in an abandoned warehouse for days after that, the city outside shifting like a beast ready to devour us. Adrian was restless, pacing the cracked concrete floors, his wound healing slower than it should have. Every night, I'd hear him muttering in a language I couldn't understand, his voice frayed with desperation. One night, I asked him, "What happens if they catch us?" He stopped pacing, turning to me with eyes darker than midnight. "They won't stop at me. They'll take you too. Break you. Use you to remind me of what I've done. Then we run." He shook his head. "You don't outrun angels. Even the fallen. Then we fight," I said, standing, my fists clenched even though I knew how ridiculous it sounded. Adrian's gaze softened, almost pitying. "You'd fight a war you can't win for me?" "I'd fight the whole damn universe if it means keeping you." He didn't answer, but that night, when I woke up shivering, I found him lying beside me for the first time, his hand clutching mine as if I was the only thing tethering him to the world. The attacks didn't stop. Each night, more shadows, more whispers. They weren't just after Adrian, they wanted me broken, terrified, begging for release. One evening, I found a message scrawled on the wall of the warehouse in something that smelled like smoke and blood. "He isn't yours. He never will be." I felt my stomach drop, fear clawing at my chest. Adrian read it once, his jaw tightening, then erased it with a single swipe of his hand. But his silence screamed louder than the words ever could. "They'll never accept this," he said finally. "Not heaven, not hell. We're playing a game we can't win." "Then let's stop playing," I shot back. "Let's write our own rules." He looked at me like I was insane. Maybe I was. But when his lips found mine in the dark, hungry and desperate, I knew he believed me. At least for that moment. But love doesn't erase the past. And one night, as the city burned red with sirens, the truth came for us. We were surrounded, 5 of them this time, their forms clearer now, less shadow and more fury. Their voices boomed like thunder, calling Adrian by names I couldn't pronounce, each one dripping with betrayal. "You were ours," one of them hissed. "You belonged to the fall. And now you choose him." Adrian stepped forward, his body trembling with exhaustion but burning with defiance. "Yes," he said, his voice steady. "I choose him." The warehouse shook. The air split with light and shadow, fire and smoke. Adrian unleashed everything. His wings spread wide, brilliant and terrible, his power shaking the ground. And still they came. I watched him fight like a man tearing himself apart, every blow fueled not by vengeance, but by something far more dangerous, love. And then one of them turned to me. "Do you know what he's given up for you, boy?" The voice sneered. "Do you know what price your love will cost?" I stood frozen as the figure raised its hand, shadows curling like knives. Adrian saw. He screamed my name, his voice breaking, his body twisting to shield me. And in that moment, I understood this wasn't just about a contract. It wasn't about revenge. It was about survival and about choosing him no matter the cost. So when the shadow lunged, I didn't run. I grabbed the nearest shard of broken glass from the floor and swung with everything I had. The figure recoiled, shrieking, its form flickering, and Adrian's power surged like a storm, slamming into them with a force that rattled the walls. When it was over, the warehouse was in ruins, smoke curling around us. Adrian collapsed to his knees, his wings flickering, his body trembling. I dropped beside him, pulling him into my arms. "You're not alone," I whispered fiercely, even as tears burned my eyes. "You'll never be alone again. Not as long as I'm here." His eyes met mine, broken and beautiful. "They won't stop," he said. "They'll keep coming. Until one of us is gone." "Then let them come," I said, my voice steady, my heart louder than my fear. "Because I'm not letting you go." The war came at sunrise. The city woke to thunder that wasn't thunder, lightning that split the sky without rain. Sirens screamed, glass shattered, and people looked up in terror without knowing what they saw. But I knew. I had always known this was coming. They had found us. Adrian stood at the edge of the rooftop, his silhouette framed against a bruised sky. His wings unfurled fully for the first time, immense, terrifying, breathtaking. They weren't just shadows anymore. One side was darker than midnight, feathers dripping with smoke, while the other gleamed faintly with light, broken but still burning. He was both ruin and miracle, and I loved him more than I had words for. "They won't stop until I'm gone," he said, not turning to me. His voice was calm, steady, the voice of a man who had already accepted his fate. "You're wrong," I answered, moving to stand beside him. My chest ached, but my voice didn't falter. "They won't stop until we're gone. And I'm not leaving you." For the first time in days, he looked at me, truly looked. His eyes were galaxies, endless and heavy, but in them I saw something new, hope, fragile and defiant. "You'll die for me?" he asked, almost in disbelief. "I'll live for you," I said. "But if dying is the price, then yes. 1,000 times yes." He closed his eyes for a moment, as if those words cut deeper than any blade. Then he reached out, his hand trembling as it laced with mine. Then we faced them together. The sky split open. They came like shadows poured from a wound in heaven, dozens, maybe more, their forms shifting, wings blacker than night, voices like broken bells. They circled above us, their laughter cruel, their hatred burning. "Traitor," one of them hissed at Adrian. "You gave up eternity for a mortal. Pathetic." "And you?" another sneered, its gaze landing on me. "You think love can save him? You'll break like all the rest." Adrian stepped forward, his voice booming across the rooftop. "I am not yours anymore. I choose him. I choose love." The laughter grew louder, thunder rolling with it. "Then you will fall again, this time into nothing." And then they descended. The battle was chaos. Adrian met them head-on, his wings slicing through the air, his power exploding in blinding bursts. The rooftop shook, the city below screaming with alarms and confusion. I stayed close, grabbing broken pipes, shards of concrete, anything I could use, even though I was nothing compared to them. But every time one lunged for me, Adrian was there catching the blow, unleashing fury that could split the world. Still, they were endless. For every one that fell back, 2 more came. And I could see it. Adrian was breaking. His movements slowed, his breaths ragged, his glow dimming. I refused to watch him die. "Take me instead," I screamed into the storm. My voice cracked, but it cut through the chaos. "If it's a price you want, take me." Adrian froze, horror flashing in his eyes. "No," he roared. "Don't you dare." The fallen circled, their laughter sharper than knives. "He offers himself," one said mockingly, "so eager to trade his soul for yours." Adrian staggered, turning to me, his face stricken. "You don't understand. If they take you, I'll be nothing. Don't you see? You're the only reason I still exist. Tears blurred my vision, but I held his gaze. And you're the only reason I want to. The leader of the fallen stepped forward then, taller than the rest, wings stretching wide enough to blot out the dawn. His face was cruelly beautiful, carved from shadow and fire. There is one way, he said. One of you must break. One of you must surrender. Then, and only then, will the other be spared. Silence. The storm seemed to hold its breath. Adrian's grip on my hand tightened painfully. No, he whispered. I won't let them win. But I knew what he was about to do. I saw it in his eyes, the sacrifice, the resignation. And I couldn't let him. Not him. So I stepped forward first. I surrender, I said, my voice steady even as my heart shattered. Take me. Spare him. Adrian's scream ripped the sky apart. No! The fallen surged, shadows curling around me like chains, pulling at my soul, tearing me from him. I felt myself slipping, darkness swallowing me whole. And then Adrian's light exploded. It was unlike anything I had ever seen. He unleashed everything, every ounce of pain, every shred of love, every spark of the angel he once was. His wings blazed, half shadow, half light, a storm of fury and devotion. The fallen shrieked, recoiling, their forms burning under his brilliance. He broke their hold on me, dragging me back into his arms, shielding me with his body. His voice was a roar and a prayer all at once. You will not take him. Not now. Not ever. The leader staggered, his face twisted with rage. You'll destroy yourself. Then so be it. Adrian spat, his wings blazing brighter. If this is my end, I choose it. I choose him. The world went white. When I opened my eyes, the rooftop was silent. The fallen were gone, scattered like smoke in the wind. The storm had broken, the first light of dawn spilling across the skyline. And Adrian was in my arms, broken and fading. His wings flickered, their edges dissolving into ash. His skin glowed faintly, too fragile, too human. No, I whispered, shaking him. Don't you dare. Don't you leave me. He smiled weakly, his hand lifting to brush my face. You gave me something I never thought I'd have again. Something worth falling twice for. Stop, I choked, tears blinding me. You're not going anywhere. You hear me? You stay. You stay with me. His breath shuddered. I don't know what I'll be after this. Maybe nothing. Maybe just a man. But if I'm with you, that's enough. I held him tighter, burying my face in his shoulder. Then be human. Be broken. Be anything. Just be mine. And as the sun rose, painting the city in gold, Adrian's wings dissolved completely, leaving only him, no longer angel, no longer fallen, just a man in my arms. Alive. We never spoke of the contract again. Life after that wasn't easy. The city still whispered, still judged. We had nights where fear crept back in, where shadows lingered too long. But we also had mornings, coffee in cracked mugs, laughter in small apartments, hands finding each other in crowded streets. Adrian learned how to live again, how to be mortal. He burned toast. He cursed at traffic. He kissed me like every second was a miracle. And I learned that love doesn't erase pain. It doesn't cure wounds or silence ghosts. But it gives you something stronger than revenge, stronger than fear. It gives you someone to fight for, someone to hold, someone to fall with every single day. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.